The morning began with calm glass reflections across the skyline, but within seconds, chaos swallowed the silence. Alexander Reed sat at his desk, the sun slicing through the floor-to-ceiling windows, when his phone vibrated violently. The sound wasn't just a notification. It was the echo of disaster. Screens around the office flickered red. Headlines exploded across every monitor, screaming accusations and numbers that bled like open wounds. Alexander whispered, "What is this?" Evelyn Cross, his trusted coup, rushed in, her voice trembling. "It's out. The reports leaked. Everything's everywhere." The words shattered whatever control he thought he had. He rose slowly, his face pale, as whispers spread like fire through glass corridors. The building seemed to hum with panic. Investors were calling. Employees were frozen between disbelief and dread. Marcus Vance, the company's PR chief, shouted from the doorway, "They're tearing you apart online. You need to respond now." But Alexander couldn't move. His empire, built over decades, was dissolving in seconds. He felt eyes watching him, employees peering through glass, phones recording, loyalty cracking. The sound of alarms mixed with ringing phones, a symphony of downfall. "Who did this?" Alexander demanded, but the question hung unanswered. Outside, the city pulsed, indifferent to his collapse. Inside, his kingdom was burning. The once invincible CEO stood silent amid the chaos, realizing power could vanish faster than breath. The office was no longer a sanctuary but a storm. Alexander paced near the shattered calm of his window, eyes flicking between screens. "They're saying I faked the numbers," he muttered. Evelyn replied softly, "We can fight this, but the board's asking questions." He turned sharply, his face carved by disbelief. "Who leaked it?" Silence hung heavy. Marcus entered, holding a printed article, his tone grim. "The markets are bleeding. You've lost 30% in 1 hour." The words struck harder than any blow. The silence afterward was suffocating. The air smelled like tension and fear. Alexander's empire was collapsing faster than logic. "We had everything under control," he said, almost to himself. Evelyn touched his arm, but he pulled away. "Someone wanted this," he whispered, "and they knew exactly where to hit." The sound of notifications echoed through the room like bullets. Marcus said quietly, "You need a statement." Alexander stared through the glass. "No," he said, voice steady now. "I need the truth." The storm spread beyond walls. News drones circled the building, reporters swarming below like vultures. Alexander watched from his office as helicopters hovered. "They're tearing me apart," he said. Marcus replied, "They smell blood." Evelyn scrolled through headlines, her voice breaking. "They're calling for your resignation." The air buzzed with static and whispers. The city outside looked calm, but inside the building was collapsing under invisible weight. Alexander exhaled slowly. "No one resigns from their own empire," he said coldly. He walked toward the window, eyes hard. "Get me the board," he demanded. Evelyn hesitated. "Now," he snapped. For a moment she saw something new in him, not fear but rage. His reflection looked like a man already haunted by what he might become. The emergency board meeting began under heavy lights. 11 faces appeared on the conference screen. Voices overlapped, questions flying like arrows. Alexander raised his hand, silence following reluctantly. "I built this company from nothing," he said, "and I will not watch it be destroyed by lies." A voice from the screen replied, "The evidence looks real." He felt the stab of betrayal from digital pixel. Evelyn looked down, unable to meet his eyes. Marcus interjected, "We can contain this, but we need to act fast." The screen flickered with hesitation and doubt. "Contain?" Alexander said softly, anger cracking his tone. You think this is a leak? This is war. Silence settled again. Somewhere deep inside, the fight in him began to rise. That night, the city glowed like fire beyond the glass. Alexander sat alone, sleeves rolled up, eyes red from sleeplessness. The office that once felt infinite now felt like a cage. Evelyn entered quietly. You should go home, she said softly. Home, he repeated, voice flat. I live here. She placed a file on his desk. Someone accessed internal reports last night, she said. He looked up sharply. Show me. The pages told a story worse than betrayal. They showed precision. Whoever did it knew everything. Evelyn whispered. This was no accident. Alexander stared at the city lights. Then we start digging, he said coldly, because whoever did this just declared war. The night outside pulsed with neon, reflecting off glass like silent flames. The boardroom was cold as steel. Alexander stood at the head of the table, his voice cutting through silence. We are not victims, he said, steady but burning inside. Evelyn sat across from him, tablet in hand, her eyes darting nervously between charts and faces. The directors whispered among themselves like predators sensing weakness. Marcus leaned forward, whispering, You need them to believe you. Alexander's gaze didn't move. They already believe the noise. He tapped the table, the echo sharp. The screens showed plunging stock prices. A single red line dropped endlessly downward. Outside, rain began to tap against the glass. Evelyn whispered, If we don't act now, they'll remove you. Alexander clenched his jaw. Then I'll remind them who built this company. He turned to the room, voice rising. No one replaces me. Not today. For a moment, silence returned. Power shifted like static in the air, invisible but dangerous. The board watched a man refusing to break, even as the world demanded it. After the meeting, the hallway felt like a battlefield. Employees avoided eye contact. Phones buzzed. Rumors grew louder with every passing second. Marcus caught up to Alexander. You can't fight everyone, he said. Watch me, Alexander replied, his voice calm but filled with fury. Evelyn followed a few steps behind, speaking softly. The rival CEO, Adrian Locke, is circling. His offering the board a buyout. Alexander stopped walking. He thinks I'm finished? Evelyn nodded. The air was thick with dread. Then he's about to find out how wrong he is. Alexander said. Marcus sighed. Don't go to war yet. We need allies. But Alexander's silence was his answer. His reflection in the elevator doors showed a man sharpening his will into a weapon. The fight had begun. Later that evening, Alexander sat in his dim office when his assistant announced a visitor. Adrian Locke entered with the smooth confidence of a predator. You look tired, Adrian said, smiling faintly. Running an empire is exhausting work. Alexander didn't look up. I'm not selling. Adrian laughed. Everyone sells eventually. The only question is for how much. The rain outside thickened, streaking the windows like tears. You leak my numbers? Alexander asked. Adrian leaned forward. If I did, you'd never prove it. The tension in the air felt alive. You'll regret this, Alexander said. Adrian smiled. I already don't. When the rival CEO left, the room felt colder. Evelyn stepped in moments later. What did he want? She asked. To gloat? Alexander replied. And to warn me he's coming for everything. The next morning, Evelyn's office buzzed with urgency. Papers scattered across her desk, emails flooding her screen. Marcus leaned over her shoulder. We have leaks inside, he said. Someone's feeding Locke. She froze. Who? Marcus shook his head. Too many hands in the data. Alexander entered, his presence tightening the room. "Start tracing everything. I want names." His voice was steady, but rage simmered beneath. Evelyn hesitated. "We can't accuse without proof." Alexander looked at her coldly. "Then find proof." The three worked in silence. The hum of computers and rain blended into one long, anxious note. In that silence, trust began to crack. Evelyn felt it. The first fracture between loyalty and fear. That evening, the city lights shimmered like distant fire. Alexander met Marcus in the private lounge overlooking downtown. "The board's calling an emergency session tomorrow," Marcus said. "They're questioning your leadership." Alexander poured a drink slowly. "Let them question. They'll still need me when the storm passes." Marcus looked uneasy. "They're scared." Locke's offering them safety. Alexander turned toward the glass, voice calm. "Safety is an illusion." He took a slow sip, eyes on his reflection. "I fought for everything I have. I won't lose it to cowards," Marcus said softly. "Evelyn's worried," Alexander replied. "So am I. But not for me." The skyline flickered, lightning flashing across clouds. The storm outside matched the one brewing within. The storm had passed, but tension lingered like static. Alexander sat in the data center, surrounded by screens glowing blue. Evelyn entered, holding a report. "We found something," she said. "Access logs. Someone entered restricted servers last night." Alexander's face hardened. "Who?" She hesitated. The CFO's silence followed, sharp as glass. Marcus entered mid-conversation, eyes narrowing. "Are you sure?" Evelyn nodded. "It traces back to his credentials." Alexander's jaw tightened. "Then it's not sabotage. It's treason." The hum of machines filled the air. He rose slowly. "Get him in here!" Evelyn looked uneasy. "Maybe there's an explanation." Alexander's eyes were cold. "There never is." In the interrogation room, the CFO, Daniel Price, sat under a single light. Sweat beaded on his forehead. "You think I did this?" he asked. Alexander stood opposite, arms folded. "I don't think." "I know." Daniel shook his head. "You're seeing enemies in shadows." Alexander's voice was quiet. "Because they're hiding there." Evelyn watched from the corner, tension heavy. Daniel leaned forward, desperate. "You made mistakes. Someone had to fix them." Alexander replied. "You sold me out." Silence pressed against the walls. The hum of air vents filled the room like distant thunder. For the first time, Evelyn saw fear, not in Daniel, but in Alexander. Later, Evelyn walked with Marcus through the underground parking lot. "He's losing control," she said softly. Marcus sighed. "He's fighting ghosts." The echo of footsteps filled the space. Cars stood like silent witnesses. "If he keeps pushing, the board will remove him," Marcus added. Evelyn stopped walking. "He's not wrong, though. Someone's working against him." Marcus looked at her, weary. "Maybe it doesn't matter anymore. The company's bleeding." She looked away, voice quiet. "He's still fighting for it." The parking lot lights flickered, bathing everything in harsh white. Somewhere above, thunder rolled again. That night, Alexander met secretly with Victor Hale, the company's former CEO, in a private club filled with dark wood and low light. Victor looked older, eyes weary but sharp. "You think you're different from me," Victor said. "But power always eats its own," Alexander replied. "You built this empire. How did you survive?" Victor smiled faintly. "I didn't. I was swallowed. Silence stretched between them. The board won't forgive weakness, Victor warned. They'll bury you before you see it coming. Alexander leaned forward. Then I'll dig my way out, the old man chuckled. You already started your grave. Evelyn stood alone on the rooftop terrace, city lights stretching endless below. Her phone buzzed. A message flashed. He knows. She froze. Below her, the office lights flickered on one floor. Alexander was still working. She watched him through glass, a lone figure surrounded by power and ghosts. The wind whipped her hair. She whispered to herself, how much longer can he fight? The night was silent except for the hum of the city and the weight of coming betrayal. Morning light spilled through the blinds, but the company felt darker than ever. Evelyn entered Alexander's office, holding a folder she wished she didn't have. It's everywhere, she said quietly. Confidential emails, contracts, everything. Alexander looked up, face pale. Leaked? Evelyn nodded. Every outlet has it. His chest tightened. They want me destroyed. Marcus burst in, voice raised. The press is calling it the corporate collapse. Investors are pulling out. The weight of betrayal hung heavy. Alexander asked, how deep does it go? Evelyn replied, all the way down. Silence filled the room. Outside, the sound of sirens drifted from the street below. Alexander whispered, someone inside did this. His hands trembled, but his eyes were steady. Then we find them. No one hides behind my walls again. Within hours, the board assembled again, tension thicker than smoke. Alexander walked in without a word. We've lost half our clients, a director said. You need to step down. Alexander stared back. You think surrender will fix this? Marcus whispered near him. They're turning. Evelyn sat quietly, eyes down. The chairman leaned forward. You're toxic, Reed. Alexander's jaw tightened. Toxic, he said softly. I'm the reason you all have jobs. His words cut through the room, but no one responded. For the first time, he saw how alone he was. Betrayal didn't shout. It whispered in polite tones. If you remove me, he said, you better pray your replacements can fight fire. He walked out before they could answer, leaving silence in his wake. Back in his office, Alexander poured coffee that tasted like rust. Evelyn entered softly. The CFO's missing, she said. He froze mid-sip, missing. No calls, no emails, she replied. Marcus joined them, holding his phone. He withdrew everything from his account. Alexander's eyes narrowed. So he ran. Evelyn whispered, or someone helped him disappear. Alexander slammed the cup down, coffee spilling across the desk. Find him, he ordered. The tension cracked into fury. Evelyn nodded but hesitated. What if he wasn't alone? Alexander looked at her, voice low. Then we're surrounded. The sound of rain began again outside, slow and relentless. That evening, Alexander met with Victor Hale again, the former CEO who once ruled these halls. Victor's voice was low and steady. You think you're the first to be betrayed? Alexander replied. I thought loyalty still meant something. Victor laughed without humor. Loyalty dies the moment profit bleeds. The firelight flickered between them. They'll vote you out soon, Victor warned. Alexander leaned forward. Then I'll give them something to fear first. Victor shook his head slowly. Fear is temporary. Power is forever if you can hold it. Alexander rose, jaw set. Then, I'll hold it till it burns me. Near midnight, Evelyn walked into the darkened control room. Screens still glowed with data feeds. One file pulsed red, leak source. She clicked. The folder opened to reveal hidden logs, and her breath caught. The entries led straight to her terminal. Her reflection stared back from the glass. No, she whispered. Behind her, footsteps echoed. Alexander stood in the doorway, eyes cold. "You found it." She turned slowly. "Yes," she said, voice trembling. "It points to me." His expression didn't change. "Does it lie?" Silence answered. The glow of the monitors painted their faces in cold blue light. Two people caught between trust and ruin. Rain drummed against the windows while Alexander studied the skyline, face set with new resolve. Evelyn entered carrying folders marked Strategy A. "You can't fight them alone," she said. He replied, "I built this company alone." Marcus stepped forward. "You'll need proof, not pride." Alexander turned, eyes sharp. "Then bring me proof." He opened the folder. Inside were records, deals, hidden accounts. "Locke planted these seeds," he murmured. Evelyn said quietly, "Expose him and we still lose the investors." Alexander smiled faintly. "Maybe we don't need investors, just leverage." The air vibrated with risk. "We hit back tomorrow," he declared. Evelyn whispered. "Then we're all in." Thunder rolled above, sealing their pact. Morning arrived with metallic light. In the conference hall, Alexander faced his leadership team. "We're releasing a counterstatement," he announced. Murmurs spread. Evelyn connected her tablet to the screen, showing evidence against Locke's subsidiaries. Marcus said, "This will burn bridges," Alexander replied. "Then let them burn." He spoke with precision, each word cutting through fear. "We tell the truth before they twist it." Evelyn glanced at him, uncertain but moved. The cameras turned on. Red recording lights blinked like targets. Alexander looked directly into them. This company was betrayed, but not broken. His voice carried conviction born from ruin. The room held its breath. News exploded within minutes. Reporters shouted questions outside headquarters. Inside, Alexander watched coverage in silence. Evelyn turned toward him. "They're calling this your comeback," he said quietly. "Or my last stand." Marcus approached, phone in hand. "Locke's threatening legal action." Alexander smiled. "Good. It means he's scared." The three exchanged glances that blended fear and resolve. "We keep pushing," Alexander said. "Until he cracks?" Evelyn asked. "And if we do?" He looked at her with weary certainty. "Then the truth wins, whatever's left of us." Outside, flashbulbs popped like tiny explosions, marking the start of a different kind of war. Evening returned heavy with tension. The board demanded another meeting. Alexander walked in first, carrying his own evidence drive. The chairman asked, "Do you plan to blackmail us?" Alexander replied evenly, "No, I plan to survive." He projected emails proving Locke's manipulation of their votes. Gasps filled the room. Evelyn sat near the end, eyes wide. Marcus whispered, "You just declared open war." Alexander faced them all. "You already did when you betrayed me." Lightning flashed through the windows as thunder shook the glass walls. For the first time, fear moved from him to them. Midnight found the trio in the rooftop office, city lights pulsing below. Marcus poured whiskey. "They'll come for us," he said. Alexander took the glass. "Let them climb." Evelyn asked softly, "What if Locke strikes first?" Alexander looked over the skyline. "Then we finish what we started." The wind howled through the open terrace, carrying the hum of sirens. "You've changed," Evelyn said. He nodded. "War does that." Marcus raised his glass. "To survival." They clinked in silence. Far below, lights flickered across their building like distant fires. The night felt fragile, as if the world was holding its breath. The storm that had hovered for days finally broke. Lightning painted the skyline as Alexander stood before the glass, staring at the reflection of a man unraveling. Evelyn entered, voice low. "They're voting tonight." He didn't move. "I know." The air between them felt electric. Marcus joined, holding a tablet glowing red. The leak came from Daniel's old login, but the timestamps don't match. "Someone changed them." Alexander turned. "So Daniel was framed?" Evelyn nodded. "It looks that way." He exhaled slowly. Then Locke planned every step. Outside thunder rolled, shaking the windows. Marcus whispered, "We can still expose him." Alexander's tone hardened. "We will." For the first time, fear was gone. Only fury remained. The war was no longer defensive. It was retribution. The Empire would burn, but he would decide the flames. The board gathered again, but this time the air reeked of tension and fear. Adrian Locke joined remotely, his smile cutting through the screen. Alexander stood before them. "You orchestrated this," he said. Locke laughed softly. "You destroyed yourself." "I only opened the door." Gasps rippled across the table. Evelyn looked between them, heart pounding. Alexander leaned forward. "You leaked the numbers, framed Daniel, and bought half this board." Locke's grin widened. "You finally figured it out." The chairman slammed a gavel. "This meeting is out of order." But chaos had already taken root. Alexander's voice dropped. "Enjoy your victory, Adrian. It ends tonight." He left before anyone could stop him. Behind him, screens glowed like embers in the dark. In the underground garage, Alexander met Marcus in secret. "Locke owns half the board," Marcus said. "Then we take the other half," Alexander replied. He handed over a flash drive. "Inside are transactions linking Locke to insider trading." Marcus hesitated. "This could bring everything down." Alexander's eyes were steady. "That's the point." Rain dripped from the ceiling pipes. The sound echoed like a clock running out of time. Evelyn called on speaker, her voice urgent. "The vote starts in 30 minutes. Alexander slid into his car, engine roaring. "Then let's make sure it's the last meeting they ever hold without me." The tires screeched into the night. At headquarters, Evelyn paced outside the boardroom. Her phone buzzed. A message from Locke. "Switch sides now or fall with him." She stared at it, palms cold. Inside, Alexander arrived late, rain still on his coat. The room fell silent. He projected data onto the screen. Bank trails, emails, signatures. Gasps rose. "Locke used this company to fund his takeover," he said. The board stirred. Locke appeared on the main monitor, face tight with rage. "You'll regret this." Alexander replied. "No, you will." The feed cut abruptly. Thunder rattled the windows. For a moment, the room felt alive again, with fear and truth. Moments later, alarms blared. Security rushed in. The systems had been hacked. Files erased, accounts locked. Marcus shouted, "They're wiping everything." Alexander grabbed a drive from his desk. "Backup data is offline." "I'm going." Evelyn caught his arm. "It's suicide." He looked at her. So was trusting them. He ran into the server room, lights flashing red. The heat was blinding. He plugged in the drive as smoke rose from the machines. "Outside," Marcus yelled. "Get out." Alexander typed one last command. The system froze. He stared at the screen, whispered, "It's done." Then the power died, leaving only darkness and the smell of burnt circuitry. Smoke still clung to the air when Alexander stepped from the server room. The building hummed with silence. Systems dead. Power gone. Evelyn ran to him, voice shaking. "You're lucky to be alive." He stared ahead, eyes hollow. "Everything's gone." Marcus arrived, coughing through the haze. The board evacuated. Locke vanished. Alexander's voice cracked. "Then it's over." Evelyn shook her head. "No." Oh, you still have that drive. He looked down at the scorched metal in his hand. This is all that's left. Outside, dawn broke faintly, bleeding through the smoke. It's not over, Evelyn said softly. Not if we tell the truth, Alexander whispered. Truth died with the company. He turned toward the window where the city glowed like embers. By afternoon, Alexander walked through what remained of his empire. Desks empty, screens black, the air humming with the ghost of productivity. Evelyn followed in silence. The board has gone public, she said. They're blaming you. Alexander smiled faintly. Of course they are. He stopped at the window overlooking the skyline. They'll rebuild without me. Pretend none of this happened. Evelyn hesitated. What will you do? He looked out at the city. I built this once. I can do it again. But not like before. Marcus joined them quietly. The world thinks you're finished. Alexander turned. Then it's time to prove them wrong. His tone was cold, measured, almost calm. That night, Alexander met Evelyn at a quiet rooftop bar overlooking the city. The lights shimmered below like memories of power. She said softly, "You could still go public with the files." He shook his head. "And what?" "Watch them bury it." She looked at him sadly. "You can still be remembered as the man who tried to fix it." He met her gaze. "I never wanted to fix it. I wanted to win." Silence stretched between them. "You lost everything," she said. He smiled faintly. "Not everything." His eyes reflected the skyline, fire and light merging into one. The next day, a news report filled every screen in the city. Adrian Locke under investigation for fraud. Evelyn watched from her apartment, disbelief flooding her face. She called Alexander, voice trembling. "It's out." On the other end, silence. "You released it, didn't you?" he finally said. "They needed to see the truth. Where are you?" she asked. "Gone," he replied. "The world doesn't need me anymore." The call ended. Evelyn stared at the blank screen, tears forming. Outside, sirens wailed faintly, a city cleansing itself of old sins. A week later, the world moved on. Headlines shifted. New scandals rose. Alexander stood alone on a coastal cliff, wind tearing at his coat. The ocean below crashed with endless rhythm. He looked out toward the horizon. "Power isn't the prize," he murmured. "It's the cost." He dropped the burnt flash drive into the sea. The wind carried his words away. Behind him, the sky burned gold with the setting sun. For the first time, his face softened, not in defeat, but in peace. The empire was gone, but he remained, just a man who had learned the weight of ambition.